Not since Stanley Kubrick has a director been so meticulous with the crafting of their images, but if there's an exception, Paul Thomas Anderson has to be it. Yeah, I know he's the film bro's wet dream, but he also has a very keen and particular eye for aesthetics. And by film bro's wet dream, I mean me, because he's my favorite director. You know him from films like Boogie Nights and There Will Be Blood and The Master and Phantom Thread, and through all of that, he's created a style that has such narrative depth and aesthetic richness. Anderson's approach to filmmaking is meticulous, but there's a very specific reason why. He's looking for a
feeling
based on the narrative, and he's using composition, camera movement, and lighting to get that feeling. Now, over the years, his style has evolved significantly, but the craftsmanship behind his images remains strong. And it's a key part of his storytelling. For example, check out how he uses the camera to tell the story in There Will Be Blood. Look how unbalanced this frame is. And while Daniel's attention is on Abel Sunday, Eli dominates the frame. And then when Eli calls out Daniel for being there just for their oil,
within that, we're going to develop leaps.
We switch to this shot.
What's that?
Now as Daniel's attention is fully on Eli, the frame changes and becomes more balanced and more confrontational between the two of them. The look of a Paul Thomas Anderson film always starts with, well, film. Actual celluloid. His commitment to film over digital underscores his dedication to the art form's traditional aesthetics and textures. I mean, this guy's even meticulous about the way that he selects his film stocks that he's going to use for each film. It's not always a matter of what film is more or less sensitive to light. It's about what he's going to do with the film and how it feels for the story. He's even particular about the way his films are developed and printed. For instance, in Phantom Thread, he performed extensive tests with Kodak film stocks, ultimately choosing Kodak's Vision 3500T. Pushing it a stop to enrich the grain, contrast, and color saturation, perfectly capturing the essence of 1950s London fashion scene. He then went on to use low-con filters or low-contrast filters to flatten that out a little bit so it's not so aggressive with the look. For a visual example, this is my image with a low-con filter. This is without. 1/4 low-con? Without. 1/4? Without. He was testing to see what the film stocks could do in order to get the desired look that he had in mind, which for Paul is always about a
feeling
more so than a look. Anderson's choice of film, along with his specific use of lenses and the way he develops and processes his film, showcases his intent to preserve the tactile quality of film, ensuring that each frame conveys the story's emotional and visual depth as authentically as possible. Now, from everything I hear, Paul Thomas Anderson really wants to know exactly what his film is going to look like before he shoots. And since he's actually shooting on celluloid, the testing process is meticulous.
With Paul, it's like he is very selective on his lenses. He really understands camera and all that. And so testing is a massive part. We're constantly testing. Testing is always a thing. And
Paul is always testing. I mean, he's always looking at something. I mean, I jokingly say every day of your shoot day is also a test day.
Now, he also has a very well-documented obsession with camera lenses. And his testing of these lenses and film stocks are always more real-world than technical. He wants to see how the combination of lens and film stock work with the actor's skin and the wardrobe and the lighting that they're using and how it affects him emotionally. And his process for selecting lenses is highly detailed and always based on the emotion of the scene and the overall story that's being told.
Paul, knows his lenses. He knows all their characteristics.
I've never worked with a director who knew lenses the way Paul does.
Paul handcrafts his own set of lenses for each show. It's a mismatch of glass that all has relevance to Paul.
He's known for a specific preference for lens types to achieve the desired effect for the scene. His early work has a penchant for wide-angle lenses, which allows for deeper focus, adding extensive detail across the frame. But don't confuse it, his lens obsession goes way beyond just focal length. For instance, his use of an old 43mm Pathé lens that's been adapted to a 50mm and can be used on modern cameras.
Paul has a Pathé lens, a 50mm Pathé lens that started life as a projector lens. It's a very old lens. It has a lot of fall off. It's sort of center sharp. Paul will use it very, very selectively, but there'll just be a quick moment of a close-up or something.
This in particular highlights his obsession with finding different things to highlight different emotions within a scene. The use of these lenses allow him to draw the viewer's focus in a very controlled manner. highlighting the emotional state and isolation of his characters amidst the broader scope of the scene. For instance, in There Will Be Blood, the choice of lenses emphasized the desolate landscapes and Daniel Plainview's psychological isolation contributing to the film's atmospheric pressure. Robert Elswit, who worked as the cinematographer on quite a few of Paul Thomas Anderson's films, has often spoken of the way that they would select lenses for each scene. He's quoted as saying, "Paul is very particular about lenses. He's looking for something that isn't just a look, but a feeling."
Robert Elswit always used to joke that Paul knows enough just to be dangerous.
He's so aware of is the space in a scene, the space in a shot. I've worked on all those movies where there's 2 cameras and there's 8 setups and there's a page of dialogue and you either don't trust the actors or you don't trust the script, and body language means nothing, and it's all about close-ups and medium close-ups and people talking to each other. But Paul is the opposite of that. Paul will never put a scene together imagining that, I'm going to end up with 12 shots and I'll go in the editing room and find out what's really going on here. The space emotionally, you want to see their body language.
So Anderson's composition and camera movement are just as meticulous as his lens selection. His films are known for their dynamic tracking shots, as well as their precisely framed static shots. The famous opening sequence of Boogie Nights highlights his mastery of camera movement, when he takes the camera and introduces pretty much every key player in the film along with story details that will be important later. A shot that's a marriage between the long take in Goodfellas and Soy Cuba. You can see his continued mastery of the Steadicam in his next film, Magnolia. This use of camera movement not only showcases his technical prowess, but also serves the narrative, creating a sense of immersion and continuity. As Anderson's style matured, noticeably in films like There Will Be Blood and Phantom Thread, the latter of which he served as a cinematographer for himself, there was a shift towards more restrained camera movements and compositions that favored symmetry and balance. This change reflects a maturity in his storytelling, focusing more on the character's internal landscapes and using his camera to paint that picture. Even though he always was using the camera to serve the story and characters, his earlier work seemed to be more focused on technical skills, whereas his latter work seems to be more focused on the story exclusively. Basically, he grew up and stopped being a young show-off and started being a seasoned artist. His style shows a filmmaker that's not afraid to experiment and grow. From the kinetic energy of his early work to the more measured and introspective approach in his later films, Anderson's journey is a testament to his development as a storyteller.
The technical aspect of the process, and I'm not just talking lenses, I'm talking film stocks, grain structure, the lighting. Most directors skew more towards the creative, artistic side, and Paul dives as deep as he dives into that pool, he dives as deep into the technical side of it, and that's really, for me and my personal experiences, that's really rare for a director to.
This evolution in his style is also a testament to his collaboration with cinematographers, gaffers, camera operators, and everybody that contributes to the image. In discussing his work, he always emphasizes that filmmaking is a collaborative effort. The evolution of his visual style, therefore, is not just a personal journey, but a collaborative one. But in that collaboration, it's a singular vision driving the truck forward. And you can see his visual style throughout all of his films. And it's a fascinating look to watch how it's evolved over the years. Many filmmakers don't have that big of an evolution in style visually, but Paul Thomas Anderson does. Not only that, much like Stanley Kubrick, Paul Thomas Anderson adapts his visual style to the story that's being told, rather than forcing the story into his visual style. Cinema is inherently a visual art form, so a director with a mastery of visuals is always a plus. And Paul Thomas Anderson is one of those directors, which is one of the reasons why his films are experienced and not just seen. As Steven Spielberg once said, directing is camera work, and a director that really has a mastery over the camera and the image can better tell the story and better immerse their audience in what the story is that they're telling. No pun intended, but Paul Thomas Anderson is the master.